You've watched it happen. Someone who was, by every measure, one of the sharpest people in your circle. Someone who read constantly, thought clearly, had genuinely interesting things to say, slowly stopped showing up. Their responses to texts got shorter. Their attendance at gatherings got rarer. Their willingness to catch up over coffee quietly dried up. From outside, it looked sudden. From outside, it looked like they had chosen to disappear. What you were actually watching was something much older and much more rational than sudden withdrawal. And once you see the mechanism, it stops looking like arrogance and starts looking like the completely predictable outcome of a specific cognitive profile. If you've watched someone intelligent quietly disappear from your life, or if you've been the one doing the disappearing and haven't quite understood why, the psychology underneath isn't what most people assume. It isn't arrogance. It isn't depression in most cases. It isn't a rejection of the people who got left behind. It's a specific documented pattern in which the cost of social maintenance and the reward of solitude have tipped in a direction that makes withdrawal not just tempting, but rational. And the disappearance looks sudden only because the calculation was invisible while it was running. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Every social interaction has a cost and a benefit. For most people, the cost is low and the benefit is high. Casual conversation is easy, small talk is pleasant, and even a mediocre gathering leaves them slightly happier than they were before. For a specific subset of people, this math runs in the opposite direction. Small talk is cognitively expensive, not easy. Surface conversation feels like effort rather than rest. Group gatherings deplete rather than restore, and solitude, which most people find slightly boring, becomes genuinely regenerative, offering the specific kind of quiet that lets an active mind actually think. When a person has this profile, and they don't yet know it, they spend years trying to force themselves into the standard social pattern. They accept invitations, they make small talk, they come home tired and don't know why. And eventually, quietly, they start declining. Not because they've decided anything dramatic, just because the math finally caught up with the behavior. Evolutionary psychologists Satoshi Kanazawa and Norman Lee, in a 2016 study published in the British Journal of Psychology, documented a specific finding. As intelligence rises, the correlation between frequent socializing and life satisfaction reverses. For average intelligence adults, more socializing predicts more happiness. For higher intelligence adults, more socializing predicts less happiness. The researchers proposed a mechanism they called the Savannah theory. Higher intelligence individuals may be running cognitive profiles that were adaptive for solo problem solving, which makes forced socializing feel more like interference than reward. Psychologist Susan Cain's work on introversion documented an overlapping pattern, a cognitive style in which attention naturally goes deep rather than wide, and prolonged social contact produces a specific kind of exhaustion that solitude, and only solitude, can restore. Elaine Aron's highly sensitive person research extended this. For the HSP profile, group settings become overwhelming faster than they do for most people, not because the person is antisocial, but because their nervous system processes more input per second than others do. Picture this. Your friend group has gotten together for the third time this year. You show up. You genuinely like these people. You have a good time on the surface. Someone tells a funny story. Someone else asks about your job. You laugh, you contribute, you leave at a reasonable hour. And on the drive home in the quiet, you notice a specific fact. You could have gotten more from 3 hours of reading, or from one long conversation with one person about something that actually mattered, or even from being alone in your own head. The gathering wasn't bad. The friends aren't the problem. It's just that the shape of it, the surface topics, the split attention, the effort of being on, didn't match what your nervous system actually needs. Over enough of those drives home, the calculation flips. You stop RSVPing yes as often. Then you stop responding to group chats. Then, quietly, one of the friends notices you haven't been around. From outside, you disappeared. From inside, you were slowly answering a math problem your nervous system had been running for years. The friends didn't do anything wrong, neither did you. The math just resolved. But here's where it gets interesting. The intelligent people who withdraw aren't lonely in the way the culture expects. They aren't suffering from lack of connection. They're often deeply connected to a small number of people, deeply engaged with the ideas or work that occupies their solitude, and genuinely content in ways their disappearance makes invisible from outside. The loneliness they're often assumed to feel is a projection from people whose social math runs the other direction. But there's more going on than just cost-benefit. Many intelligent people who disappear have a specific history. They spent years feeling more lonely in company than out of it. The gatherings they attended left them feeling less understood, not more. The friendships they maintained through polite effort produced a quiet ache that solitude didn't. When they finally started withdrawing, they weren't losing something. They were stopping the loss they'd been quietly absorbing for years. And here's the kicker. The cultural framing of intelligent person disappearance has been almost entirely as arrogance or dysfunction. They think they're better than us, or something must be wrong with them. Both framings are usually wrong. The person hasn't decided they're superior. They've simply run the numbers on their own experience and realized that the specific shape of most modern socializing isn't giving them what socializing is supposed to give. The withdrawal isn't rejection of the people. It's the person quietly listening to their own nervous system for the first time. Now let's be honest. Not every withdrawal is the pattern this video is describing. Depression looks similar from outside, but has completely different mechanics. The person isn't choosing solitude because it restores them. They're isolating because they've lost the capacity to enjoy anything, including solitude. Grief-related withdrawal is different again, and often needs company rather than more space. And some people really do withdraw from arrogance rather than fit. The reframe here applies to the specific pattern where the person is content in solitude, engaged with what they do, and has simply run the math on socializing and found it didn't add up. If your withdrawal looks more like flat exhaustion, loss of interest in everything, or a growing sense that nothing matters, that's worth taking to a doctor rather than reading as intelligence. But for the person watching this, because you've been quietly disappearing and haven't understood why, here's what's happening. You aren't broken. You aren't arrogant. You aren't lonely in the way people worry you are. You're a person whose cognitive profile makes solitude genuinely restorative and most socializing genuinely depleting, and you've been slowly answering a math problem about your own life that most people never have to solve. The disappearance isn't a moral failure. It's the specific way your nervous system has been trying to protect a resource you were losing. The work isn't to force yourself back into the shape of socializing that was depleting you. It's to recognize that a small number of deep connections, plus the solitude you need, may be the right pattern for the specific person you are, and that the friends who eventually understand this are the ones worth the effort. There's something quietly rational about the intelligent person who disappears. They aren't running away. They're stopping a slow leak of energy that other people don't lose in the same situations. The solitude they're choosing isn't lonely. It's the specific condition their nervous system needs to think, to rest, and to keep being the person the friends had once found interesting in the first place. If you've spent years watching yourself pull back and quietly wondering whether something was wrong with you, this might be the moment to consider that the disappearing wasn't dysfunction. It was your nervous system finally getting listened to. You aren't broken. You aren't arrogant. You aren't running away. You're a person whose specific cognitive profile makes solitude restorative and forced socializing depleting, and the disappearance you've been quietly enacting is the rational response to a math problem your body was solving before your mind knew what it was answering. If you're the person I've been describing for the last 8 minutes, the one who has been quietly declining invitations, letting friendships fade, choosing solitude, and then wondering if you're the problem, I want you to hear this. Nothing is wrong with you. The withdrawal you've been enacting was your nervous system running a real calculation, and the answer it produced isn't a moral failure, it's information. A small number of people deeply engaged with, plus the solitude you need, may be the pattern that lets you keep being who you actually are. If any part of this landed for you, I'd love to know. Tell me in the comments about a moment when you noticed the math had flipped, or a friendship you let fade that you now understand differently. If you want more videos that name what's actually happening in the patterns most people never have the language for, that's what this channel is for. Hit subscribe. See you in the next.